3D Donald Duck acrylic nail art tutorial as part of my 3D classic Disney series by Hotpinkzebrapolish. Hi guys, in today's video I'm going to be showing you 3D Donald Duck, and this is part of my second 3D Disney series. So I did Mickey and Minnie Mouse and then Goofy, and I'll put links to the description box for those, as well as the future ones, which are going to be Daisy and Pluto. So if you're interested in the other ones, definitely check there to see what else is available, and don't forget to click subscribe to my future videos as well. So I'm going to start with an overlay of white acrylic, and I'm just going to do this relatively thin over the top of the entire thing. I like to start at the cuticle, so I place my bead a little bit down from the cuticle, about 1/4 inch, and then press it back up so it's nice and flush with the cuticle without getting too thick back there. Keep it nice and thin, and then just fill in the tip with a little bit that needed some more acrylic. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to be adding a clear layer over the top of the entire thing. The clear acrylic is for strength. That's pretty much the only reason. The other thing is, I seem to notice this and can see this, but I don't know. I've asked other people if they've been able to see this in the past, and nobody else seems to. But when you have that layer of clear acrylic over the top, there's this slight floating element that I see in the 3D art. It just looks like it's kind of mid-air, and it looks more three-dimensional than if it was right on top of a color of acrylic. Like I said though, I've asked other people if they can see this and nobody else thinks they can. It might just be me, I might be hallucinating, I don't know, but I like the way that looks. So then I went through and with a coarse bit I filed it into shape, and then I refined it a little more with a finer bit, and then just fixed up the free edge with a hand file, and now I'm applying a layer of gel sealer and putting that into my lamp to cure. So now I'm going to be starting off Donald's head with a circle of white acrylic right in the center of the nail. And as you can see, with the clear acrylic on top of there as well as that gel sealer, the white background is a little less white than the white acrylic on top of it. Same exact acrylic, but you can see a difference. And as this design progresses and I add some white paint to it as well as some outlines, his white face and little bits of white that show will actually show up really well. So after that white circle's on there, I'm going to start working on his beak, and he's at a slight angle, so his beak comes off to the side just a little bit, which I'm going to start working on now. And I'm trying to build it up so it comes perpendicularly off the nail, so it comes out at you. So you kind of got to do that in layers, so add a little bit down just to get the base, like the foundation of it, and then add little bits of acrylic more and more just to kind of push it up. And as you're working on it, push it from side to side so that instead of falling down around the acrylic that's already there, it's coming up from the top. So then after I have the top portion of his beak at least started, I might go back through and add a little more if I decide it needs it. I'm going to be doing the bottom section, so because his beak is open, or his bill, I guess bill is probably the more appropriate word. Since his bill is open, he's got that top or that lower jaw that's swinging down a little bit, and then with more white acrylic I'm going to add just a little bit of neck that is showing in between the sides of his suit coat, or sailor suit coat, I guess. So then I'm going to start adding his coat, and I'm going to start with, I won't say it's a dark blue, but it's definitely medium to dark. And I'm going to first do the lapels. And as I was doing this, I actually later decided that the lapels were not thick enough. I needed to add some more acrylic to them later on, but for now I'm just going to add those almost just for the shape, and then go through and start adding the sleeves of his coat. And since this is not very much of him showing, I pretty much just filled it in. I pushed the tip of my brush in ever so slightly to define where those sleeves are, but for the most part you can't really tell because, like I said, there's not too much of him showing because he's pretty... I wanted the characters to be really nice and large on the nail. So then using the closest thing to burgundy I had of acrylic, I'm going to be filling in his bill, the lower portion, just with that color, and then I'm going to be adding a little stripe of gold acrylic, or yellow acrylic, yellow or gold, either one, onto his suit coat. Or, yeah, onto his coat on the side that shows a little bit more, and then I'm going to go through with more of that dark blue color and add a little bit more height to the lapels so that they do look like they're sticking up. And then with a red acrylic, I'm going to be adding a red bow right at the bottom where his coat, where it closes, right in the front. So really simple bow, add the two sides together and kind of just draw a line through the center of the acrylic after it starts to set just a tiny bit with the tip of your brush at the very center of the bow with just a teeny tiny little bead. And then I'm going to be adding the black portion of his hat. So the band that actually goes around his head is black, and not too much of that shows, but you do need to add it. And if you just kind of push it in, that's the beautiful thing about having a layer of gel sealer on before you start adding the 3D work, is that the black acrylic isn't going to stain your white background, and you can easily adjust it and manipulate it on top of the surface. So then I'm going to be adding his eyes with a very, very pale blue. You do need to use blue and not white, because if they're white, they're not really going to show up, but that light blue is what the characters have to make sure that their eyes do actually show up separately from the rest of their head. Add a tiny bit of pink in his mouth for his tongue, just a very little hint. Just a tad. doesn't have too much. And then I'm going to be adding his eyelids with white. So set a bead right on top of one of the blue eyeballs and then sort of pull it and stretch it around the eye itself. So just set that down, and then it's very easy to just sort of pull it around the 3D eye that's already on there. And as you can see, his eyelids do go up over the top of that band that is on his that's from his hat. So you do want to make sure that those kind of go up and over, which is why you needed to add the band of the hat previously, because otherwise you couldn't add it underneath. And then I'm going to be doing the rest of his hat, starting off with the same color blue as I used for his coat. So it's kind of got a little divot in it, and it's to the side. That divot kind of goes in the center, so where the highest portion of it, that's actually the center of his head, but because he's to the side, it's off to the side as well. And then with black, add just a little tail that comes off the back of it, so just a little forked ribbon. Just like that, kind of like a snake tongue. And then add just a little bit more white acrylic on his cheek from where his beak is, or bill. And I'm going to be highlighting just a slight bit with some white on the edge of his beak, or bill, as well as his eyelids and that little cheek. And then with black, I'm going to start adding all the rest of the details, starting with his pupils, and then go through and outline pretty much everything, especially on this guy, and as well as Daisy. You really need to outline around his head, especially because the white on the white is most definitely difficult to see. So you need to make sure that you add enough outlines that they are visible. That being said, you might not want to over outline. And another thing I did with the black paint is I diluted it a little bit with water, and then I brushed over the inside of his mouth, since my color wasn't quite dark enough to really be a burgundy. It was more of a berry color, not really a burgundy. So I'm just going to go through and add the outlines to basically everything. Since these are the classic characters, I wanted to keep them in the classic style. Everything was outlined from that era as well. And then add a layer of matte top coat over the top of Donald entirely. And that is it. I am loving these characters, and I've pretty much decided to turn them into a necklace at this point. I just haven't quite worked out how I'll design it, but I am really looking forward to making that, and I will definitely share some photos of that on Instagram, so check that out if you're interested. And don't forget to share recreations with me on Facebook and Instagram. I really would love to see them. Any recreations you have, send them my way, or any nail art you think is cool, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!